What's going on, everybody? It's Pelfrey, and as you can see, it's time to order some fish. We got a small yellow tang, a small yellow wrasse, and a small multicolor fairy wrasse. And it's been a while since I put some fish in the tank. If you remember, a while back, I had a coal eye tang and a Melanoris wrasse just kind of die for no sudden reason whatsoever. And I started thinking about what did I do to the tank to create this problem. And at the time, I decided that I was going to dose some Microbacter 7. Now, this is in conjunction with me swapping out some rocks in my tank, so that may have added some stress to the fish. But I really think that the Microbacter 7 was the root cause of this. Now, I don't think it was the product per se. I'm pretty sure it was the user adding the product to the tank. So there obviously is instructions for this, and I may have just decided to add it how I wanted to add it myself. Now, back to the fish that I got. The yellow wrasse acted strange for the first couple of hours. Now, whenever I got the fish in, obviously I did a temperature acclimation, and then as Rico would say, I popped them and dropped them. If you're gonna tell me that I need to quarantine fish on my videos, then you need to move on, because there's no guarantee that you're not getting anything into your system, even if you quarantine fish. I don't care what you say to me. Moving on from that, no. They come in, they get inspected and visually inspected, and they get temperature acclimated, and they go into the tank. In regards to the clowns, this is very annoying because they stay at the top of the tank here. What I did on the other side is I put a frag rack over there to stop them from doing this. Basically, whenever they sit at the top of the tank, they're pushing water over it, and I have a rimless tank, which just means it's very annoying for me. Just quickly looking at the rock, this is the rock structure on the left. It's turning green, which is a good sign for me, because the white rocks that I add to my tank, they don't stay white for very long, that's for sure. The mushrooms in this tank, they're Rhodactis mushrooms, maybe Florida Recordia mushrooms, I'm not really sure, but they do very well in the tank. Obviously, the pieces that I got from Pieces of the Ocean, they've done phenomenal in here. I do wish that I would have got branching hammers, and at the time, I really didn't know what they were, the difference was. I understand I've had a reef tank for a while, but just some things you don't know. And I get it, this has kind of gone off track at this point, but since I added fish to the tank, I do have the lights turned off, and we have natural light coming into the tank. And I took this opportunity to film the corals under natural sunlight with a black background. Again, we're going to take a look at the yellow chorus wrasse, and it just acted funny for a while. And then, you know, all of a sudden, the yellow chorus wrasse was just swimming just fine. So I'm sure it has to do with stress, but I really didn't think it would make it overnight whenever I added it to the tank. As you saw there a second ago, it just kind of laid on the sand bed, and the cleaner shrimp come up to it and really annoyed it. Now, the multicolor wrasse is very hard to pick up under the actinic lighting, but he's very beautiful, and very glad I picked up him. And I'm sure anyone that's bought fish online or just in general can relate. You add them to the tank, and you're kind of just watching for like a day, and just inspecting them, seeing how they're reacting, seeing how they're doing in general. And obviously, you know, you want to do what you can to make sure that they do survive and they live a healthy life. So that's kind of what I did. I did have these fish delivered on a Saturday, so it gave me the weekend to just kind of let them acclimate to the tank, and then just keep an eye on them. The yellow tang obviously was skittish at first, and read and heard horrible things about people ordering tangs from Live Aquaria, but this tang came in with no visual issues whatsoever, and added them to the tank and still have had no issues with them. And I've done some videos on this before, but looking at the tank under natural sunlight is always fun. You're definitely not going to get the coral extension that you get when your lights are off and the direct sunlight's coming in, but it's always interesting to look at it under natural sunlight, no doubt about that. Now let's just take a tour of the tank just for the fun of it. You can see that the new rock work is again turning purple pretty quickly. It usually turns green like I showed you earlier, and then it'll turn to purple. But I've not had any issues with coralline algae growing on rocks in this tank by far. I mean, it doesn't take very long for it to take over and consume. The snail package that I picked up from Saltwater Aquarium and Algae Barn has been phenomenal. Just an update on the bumblebee snails. They've all been moving around, and as far as I know, they're all living. I'm pretty sure I lost some of the Ceres snails and maybe a couple of the other ones, the ones that can't right themselves anyway. Now, if you watched one of my previous videos, or a couple of them, I talked about using the Gem 5 lights as a refugium light. And I went ahead and bought the Kessel arm and got it mounted just because I really didn't like having the Gem 5 lights submerged. And also I want to sell the Rain 2 and allocate that money for corals into the tank. And it's just kind of hard to sell as a shell and depend on somebody to have to buy the lights and everything else for it. So I took them out, put the Kessel in. Now the good thing with the Kessel is I can control the Kessel with my Apex using the VDM port, and I already had the cable from the last setup. So I'll just show you real quickly the settings that I have. I did increase the intensity from 40 to like 80% after creating this video. And I actually couldn't find any information on programming the refugium lights for Kessel in the Apex. So I just kind of had to wing it. And obviously I had to start at 0, and then you see them running until 8 or 9 a.m., turning off, and then coming back on at 8 or 9 p.m. It doesn't take much to figure out the lighting schedule, but again, I didn't find any information on the lighting schedule, so I just had to wing it and then test it out. I do have the color going up to 90%, which gives you the red spectrum, I guess is what I should say. I guess the light on the light, it would be a bloom or a grow spectrum. Anything lower than that, you get the reds out of the spectrum itself. And obviously I'm trying to grow macroalgae, so I do need the red color and the lighting to grow the macroalgae. I've not had any substantial refugium growth at this point. Now the Chaetomorpha does have a dark green color to it, which is obviously a plus. Feeding frozen cubes, as you can see here, should help with the Chaetomorpha. I have noticed that the bristleworm population went down because I'm not feeding a frozen cube as often as I was. Now, speaking of bristleworms, I did clean out my filter socks one day, and as I was flipping the filter sock inside out, I saw a bristleworm. So be very careful. Chances are, if you're feeding heavily, you have bristleworms, and if you run filter socks, just be careful. I was lucky enough to not get stung by this bristleworm, and good enough for me because it was early in the day, and that probably could have ruined my whole day. And since I added fish to the tank, I am feeding frozen cubes more often because I'm soaking the frozen cubes in Celcon. And if you don't know what Celcon is, it's basically like a multivitamin for fish, and I like to feed it on a regular basis. Let's take a look at this Gonopora. I actually forgot that I had it, and I believe that it's a Gonopora. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I stumbled across something in the tank that blew me away. This used to be a monicap, and I have no clue what that is growing on the end of it. So if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, because I'm at a loss right now. It looks like part of the Gonoporia, or maybe what is I don't know if I'll say it correctly, but the Avalopora. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that I may not have a Goni, I may have the whatever that other Pora coral is. So far, the tank has been pretty peaceful. So I do have the yellow wrasse, the multicolor wrasse, the yellow tang, 2 clownfish, a single dartfish, a coral beauty, and 2 royal grama. I have 2 cleaner shrimp, and then a Halloween hermit, and a couple of different snails here and there. But everything seems to be pretty good, doing pretty good, and being pretty peaceful. Now the clowns, one of the clowns has been with me since the beginning, and then the coral beauty has also been with me since way back when, and the other fish have been pretty recent new additions. I did start the tank, or whenever I bought the dartfish, I did have 3, and I've slowly lost 2 of them, and I have the 1 remaining dartfish that usually stays hidden and then comes out every once in a while. There are a few more wrasses that I would like to add to the tank. It's unfortunate to report that a couple days after adding the yellow wrasse to the tank, I did find him struggling on the sand bed. And I was talking to Scurvy with Scurvy's Reef, and he said he thought maybe it was just a meant to be, or maybe the fish swam into something real hard and had a spinal issue, because I sent him a couple pictures of the yellow wrasse and how he was behaving. So I pulled the yellow wrasse out of the tank and put him in the sump. I went to work, and then whenever I come home, he had perished. And it's unfortunate because he's a beautiful fish, but I do plan to get another yellow wrasse. And as I close this video, the multicolor and the yellow tang are both doing just fine. And again, I'm gonna pick up another yellow wrasse at some point, along with some other wrasses. But as always, I do appreciate you following along. Be sure to check out the website at pelfrey.net. Check me out on Instagram at pelfreysreef, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.